Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Stanisci of CFL Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV Channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV Sticks, Roku Sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now joining me as usual, David Morassutti. David, how you doing, bud?
Doing all right. Doing all right.
I tell you, the drive home last night was really interesting. Um, well, I guess we can get onto that when we talk about the Argo game. But I guess first of all, what news at the top of the list in your mind that we have today to talk about?
Well, we have the Chris Edwards suspension reduction that we were kind of waiting for because he made his appeal during the offseason. Like
He
we knew
wasn't.
he was appealing the decision. We were just waiting for the official uh, what the CFL was going to do in terms of their I'm going to pull up the CFL PA thing. We're just waiting for the CFL to basically make the decision. So they filed the grievance. This is back on January 3rd, 2022. So that's a long time. And the case went to arbitration. So a settlement was negotiated whereby Chris Edwards, the Argos linebackers, well, he usually plays linebacker for them, agreed to serve a 3-game suspension, and the league agreed to work with the union on implementing a fan code of conduct that is to be prominently displayed at all CFL game venues. So actually, there is. I was gonna say maybe producer Daniel can let me share my screen, and I'll show you the code of conduct. It's quite a lot to read, so I'm gonna just throw it up here. And I can read some of it, but pretty much I'll give you the bullet points. Behavior that is unruly, disruptive, or illegal in nature. So these are the prohibited: over intoxication or other signs of alcohol or substance impairment, offensive language or obscene gestures, including use of such language and gestures concerning a person's race, ancestry. So basically, it covers a lot of like citizenship, religion, gender, sexual orientation, any disability. To instigate, incite, or encourage a confrontation or physical assault, interference with the progress of the game, so throwing an object onto the field, failing to follow instructions of stadium personnel. So they're pretty much. I like the fact that it wasn't just we're going to reduce the suspension, but also what are we going to do to prevent anything like this from happening again? Because it can easily happen again.
Absolutely. The assumption is um, that the players should be the ones to pay the price. The fairness is that fans don't have a right to cross the line. And what this code of conduct does, it highlights where fans would be crossing the line. And crossing the line, I haven't heard yet, and I not with what I read there, what you read and what I read. I was reading it while you were doing it. Doesn't talk about punishment, what's going to happen. Basically, all that's there now is that they're going to do something. We just don't know what it is yet. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mhm.
they've got their eyes open. Fans don't have a blank check. They never really did, David. Well, this stuff that you just read and that I read to myself while you were reading it is all stuff that basically is understood. This has always been the case. We have fans have not been able to do any of these things that they talked about. Um, the only thing is now the players, a player has been punished for an event, and I don't think any fans were. So the Players Association does not want to see a player end up in a situation where they're defenseless and then they're the ones that pay the price. So they want to make sure that. So they just wanted to hear from the owner, from the league, that fans do have a limit to what they can do. So what you'll see happen, maybe, you tell me, David, whether this you think as well, this is what will happen, If a player is being harassed by a fan, we've seen this in basketball, in fact, where you have I think, yeah, I believe it
LeBron
was,
James. It's
yeah,
happened to LeBron James
I
several
believe,
times.
I believe it was LeBron James who pointed at a customer. It was a husband and wife. They
Hmm.
were escorted off the. So the bottom line here is that the fans are now not going to be able to say, "Well, I didn't realize I couldn't do that." So when you walk in, there's a sign there that basically says, you have a limit to what you can do, what you can say, and if you cross that line, you will be dealt with by, you know, the home team, the stadium staff, whatever, the team staff, whomever handles that. And I think it's a good thing. What we saw in that Eastern final, we saw physical contact between fans and players. That
Hmm.
in no world is acceptable.
No, like as much as we try to say that the league needs to do something to ensure that the fans also understand the responsibility, in the end too, the player has to also take it in mind that he's in full pads. He's obviously an athlete wearing full gear, and he's coming after a fan who is clearly not dressed to even be on a football field. So like that's the thing that has to be kept. The players have to kind of think of that mentality too, right? And that the only thing the fans can really do to get under a player's skin is say something because
Right.
they're or throw something at them. They're not going to try to do anything else because they're going to look at somebody, a big guy, a big football player coming
Depends
at
how
them.
much they've had to drink, David.
Okay, yes, this is kind of true.
Mm,
I just think that players need to also think in their minds of, all right, we can't allow. We have to kind of understand that the fans are not should not be the priority in terms of you know in a situation like that. I just have to step aside. You just have to step aside there, and that's what got missed in that situation. Unfortunately, um, because of the way he went there too, it's not like the other his teammates could easily get to him. Eventually, a teammate did get to him and try to kind of help him out, but that's that it's just an unfortunate event that hopefully the league will has learned from and will try to prevent going forward.
it's you know it, it's not just the league, it's not just the players, it's not just the team, it's also the stadium staff. There's a whole support staff there that should be there. You might have heard of this group of people. They're called security. They
Yeah.
have a responsibility of ensuring that the players and the fans don't cross paths, right? That's, their job. They stand in front of the stands every so often, and there's a few there. And if a fan races onto the field, we've seen players tackle fans, hit fans really hard on the field. That's not really their job. They're just basically, that's what we would call in the Canadian Football League a tourist hit. And you're getting the tourist. Um,
And
so
it's
so
funny, Frank. There's more security guards protecting the field after a game because they have a whole row of security guards in the end zone at the Argo at BMO Field than they did in that situation.
yeah, so that's essentially what we're talking about here. Is that was an unacceptable situation. It was ugly to say the least.
Yeah.
It was and is a stain on the Canadian Football League. It's a stain on the Toronto Argonauts and BMO Field. And it's one that, we can pretend it never happened, but it did. And if it happens again, then, it just, it becomes, it becomes much worse. I mean, as far as what it looks like, because this business, it just can't go on. I understand about taunting players as a fan. I understand even some players, they like to taunt fans. They do the, so, that's taunting fans when they do that. So, let's not, the players are not totally innocent, and the fans aren't totally guilty. But
No. Yeah.
regardless, that kind of behavior cannot happen. It shouldn't be part of the thing. So, welcome, Mr. Edwards, back to the game. You reduced suspension from 6 to 3. um, you know, there you go. So that's, I guess, if you want to lay out a final word on that, you can. You're welcome to.
No, just it's good to see that eventually. Yeah, he served. I think they did the right thing in this situation. I thought 6 was a hefty amount, but it was good to see that they were able to find a compromise that worked for both sides.
Now we saw. No, we won't talk about the Argo game specifically at this point because I like to do them in order, and it was
Mhm.
the last game. But on the same topic, where you have decorum by the players, we saw an Argonaut team lose it emotionally. To the point where Pinball Clemens had to come onto the field. How do you feel about that situation, and when you know? How do you define what you saw?
I have seen. It's funny because I've seen it many times. Baseball players in the dugout get into arguments. NFL players, even on the sidelines. I've seen in basketball too. It's just the emotions of the game just gets to you. I totally get that. Athletes are human. It was a human reaction, but I didn't have the problem with the initial. Okay, they said something to each other. Okay, let's end it there. The fact that it continued, and somebody brought up the fact that the principal had to come down from the office to break up the kids in pinball. Like that's where it got to the point where coaches were trying to get them to stop. Andrew Harris tried to get them to stop. Like that's the part that kind of got to me there. It's just like at some point, let let's stop the stop. Like what do you
Intended.
exactly like what are we doing? What are they doing here? And the worst part, this is in front of their own fans. How do you think a fan goes and says, well, my team's fighting each other? Like like if you're an Argos fan, I feel bad that you had to witness that at a home game in a game where that game was close, right? It's not like it was a
At that
blow.
point, it wasn't though. At that point, it wasn't close,
It
Dave.
was a 7 point. I think it was they were down by 7, right? It was like they were still within a score, and the fact that that was happening, somebody's got to rein. You got to rein those guys in right away and say, look, we got a lot of time left on the board. Knock it off. Let's put the fight onto the field and not on ourselves.
I think essentially that's what happened. I look at it. I'll give you my spin on it. My spin on it is you've got these athletes. They're very competitive. It's all
Mhm.
about winning. It's about being the best. It's about being embarrassed at home. It's about having been embarrassed the previous game. There was a lot of baggage in that game when that game started that was brought back to front of mind because of the way they started the game. We're going, oh, here we go again. And, the people in the stands, come on. Everybody thought the same thing. Here we go again. This is the BC game again. This is last year when Winnipeg came here and kicked Toronto's butt up and down the field. It's another one of those games. And, they got pride. And here's my spin on it. I'm not happy about them behaving that way. I want to be clear about that. But I also want to point out it's because they care. They all cared and their pride was being hurt and they were fed up with playing that way. The proof is in the way they came out after that. It wasn't, it's funny, it wasn't, to me, in my mind, this wasn't a fight. This wasn't a family fight that caused a divorce. This was a family fight where I think everybody vented. And I think I'm not saying they needed to do it, but in essence, the way the game played after that, David, you could say it was as if they needed it because their play improved and they became very intense and they played really well after that. They could have again. I said we weren't going to talk about the game, but you know what? I lied. We'll talk about the game. We're in for a penny, in for a pound. Um, it was a game that they had no business being in by virtue of the way they started, and somehow they righted their ship. Yes, pun intended. They righted their ship, and then they played really well, and the defense was outstanding. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen an Argo defense in the past few years that was that deliberate in what they were doing, that they were that intense and they were that committed to playing defense and committed to winning and to holding this Winnipeg team at bay. I don't know if I've seen that kind of effort from the defense. And the Argos have had some really good defenses in the past few years, you know. So, that I looked at it as a point of, you know what? We screwed up. We yell at each other, but then we're brothers again. That's the way I saw it. I saw it as a family tiff. They vented, and I think they, and Pinball being the guy that he is, I'm sure he came down and he gave it the old, Pinball turning a terrible moment into a learning moment, a teaching moment. And essentially that's what it became in my mind.
What I think about with the Argos in this game is, yeah, the defense only allowed 6 points, and I thought it was going to look even worse because there was times where Zach Claros was just an escape artist out of the pocket, and he was finding guys where that extra 1 or 2 seconds was finding an open receiver. But what they did was they limited it to a field goal, and they continually limited it to a field goal. Like that was the impressive part for me from that Argos defense. And then offensively, it's almost like how do you go from being that bad in the first half to being they weren't amazing in the second half, but it
They
was
were
almost like yeah, they were efficient. They didn't first off, they weren't turning the ball over. They were getting those they were finding the spots that they need to hit and they were getting them, right? And so
absolutely. And it
that's the part
started with the guy that's supposed to lead the team, the quarterback.
yeah. It's just almost like a switch went off and I'm just like where's that switch from the start,
Uh,
right? I'm sure they're asking the same question, but that has to be it.
well,
Yeah,
what I saw was McLeod Bethel Thompson in tandem with his receivers. He didn't have the patience in the pocket that he seemed to have in the first half. He seemed to have a ball. It was a hot potato. As soon as it hike, boom, it's gone. But that's what you have to do. That's my problem with McLeod, right? He thinks about it too much. It seems. Methinks. I'm not. Hey, listen. I'm a couch criticizer here. I'm a couch coach. But from my little bit of experience that I've had watching football over the years, I find that the quarterbacks that are more successful are the ones that put the ball in play as quickly as possible. Because I don't think floating around the pocket is something you should plan to do. And if you're the kind of guy that can't be an escape artist like the guy he's playing against, then his job is to release the ball, release the ball, release the ball, release the ball. No, tuck and run, okay, fine, once in a while, but I wouldn't do it too often.
how do you go up against how do you try to manage against one of the best pass rushers in the league? Well, don't keep the ball in your hands that long. Don't be taking that 1 or 2 extra seconds to find that open receiver down the field.
You're not
You
going
got
to
to be
find him
quick.
anyway.
No, you got to be quick with it, and that's what they did. That's what I think was the biggest change. Not only that, finding guys behind the line of scrimmage and letting them pick up the yards, right? Letting them do the work. Like Curly Giddens Jr., I think he's right now. I think he is the Argos' best receiver, in my opinion. I know Brandon Banks led. He had that amazing play,
And then there's
which
DeVaris Daniels, who
yeah, he was. They weren't using him at all in that game until later. But Curly Giddens, you can put him in different situations, and he's going to find a way to make plays. He was targeted 5 times, and he made 5 catches.
yeah,
Right? They weren't big plays. They weren't trying to go for big plays, but he's consistent. He is their most consistent player. One I think doesn't even get used enough, and they were going to use him more this year. They're starting to use him more, but I think he should be the primary. Right now, they're treating Brandon Banks as the primary guy. I can see why, but I think Curly Giddens deserves a little more of that favor as the top receiver in that group.
I agree with you, but I also will say that when McLeod Bethel Thompson releases the ball very quickly, um, he's more effective. I have no explanation for that, but we saw the two different versions of McLeod Bethel Thompson. We saw the first half where it seemed as if there was a little bit of indecisiveness, and then also to his defense, some of the execution in the backfield, some of the execution by the center, some of the execution by some of the receivers who, I don't know, the route running wasn't,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, wasn't crisp enough in the first half, maybe for him to make the pass. But yeah, they bore down in the second half, and I think that's one of the things they have to do is that they have to bear down and be demanding on themselves to get open early because that's the only way they're going to have success with a drop back passer like they have.
No, exactly right. They don't have a Zach Caleros behind there that's going to. All right, the pressure's coming to me. Let me get out of the pocket for a second here, dance around, find the guy, throw it. They don't have that quarterback right now. Right now, so they have to work with what they have, and I think that's where that was the biggest. I give them credit for adjusting to that. I'm surprised Winnipeg had such a tough time adjusting to it because I thought
Yeah,
they're I thought just they were like Winnipeg just it looked like they were just gonna roll with that 17-0 to lead and they were just that was it. They were gonna be able to coast for the rest of the night.
well, their
But I think
defense didn't do what I think even they thought it could do.
yeah, I also just think when you don't have a running game, you don't have a closer.
Well, you
You
see, there's where the Argos were. The difference was
yeah.
they had a running game. You know, he ran for what 85
100
yards.
no, Ranger Harris had 111 yards on
There you go,
22 carries.
111. How often do running backs run for 100 yards now?
The Argos, I don't think have had a 100-yard game in a really long. It's a rare
There's
feat.
only been maybe one or two in the league.
No, but no, we see it. Like Stanback would get to 100.
But he
We
got
see,
injured the second game.
yeah, Kadeem Carey can get to 100.
I hear you. He can do it, but he's not here to do it right now, and
No, he's
his
not.
backup is not doing that. And we'll look at it in the four games, and maybe my point will or will not be made anyway. Andrew
But
Harris,
there's
100.
very few running backs, as you said, that are very capable of hitting that 100 yard rushing, not combined rushing.
Yeah, well, if you look at rushing as far as Winnipeg's concerned, you had an Oliveira 28 yards, Greg
Hmm.
McRae 18 yards, Zach Caleros 11 yards. I mean, you take and then Janarian Grant ran for 4 yards, and all four of them didn't add up to 100. So this is the Grey Cup champion team. So that's another reason why the Argos in the second half did really well because Harris put them on his back and went after it. Some want to know, and we know the press conference was heavy onto this idea about that single point that they ended up flubbing. Um, there were many who asked, and many who thought, and many who believed that Harris should have been given the ball and go for the 2 points. What's your view on that?
I understand Ryan Dinwiddie was trying to do the best thing for the team in terms of he's going to do what most coaches would do in that situation. But I was reading some of the comments from fans, even. They were saying it would be nice if the coach decided once in a while to not do the predictable thing and kind of have the other team kind of on their toes of what he's going to do, right?
Yeah,
It's almost like I know he's not going to go for two, so we'll just allow we'll just play for overtime. Winnipeg would have been fine to play for overtime. But if they were going for two, and if the other team's like, you know what, we really need to stop them right now because they might go for two here, and they have a running back that can run it in, for the 2 points.
it's
Like,
pretty sad though, David, when you hear the coach say, I don't think we have the ability to do that." Our history says,
well,
when he admitted that to me is that tells the whole story.
yeah, and I do think that's the reason why. There was a point in the game they were at 3rd and 2 on their own 51. 3rd and 2 on their own 51. They're down by 17, and they decided to punt the ball. punt the ball. You tell me you're not able to get 2 yards, and even if you don't get the 2 yards, your defense, you don't have the confidence in your defense to say, you know what, all right, we tried, but you guys, it's up to you guys now to try to hold them here. Like that, it's those decisions that right now we're seeing a head coach that's he's struggling to find the confidence in his group, in my opinion, to execute on the plays.
I know, but he's part of the problem. If that's the problem, like if the problem is that the team can't execute facets of the game that are required to win, you know, short yardage is a part of the game. It's something that it has to be almost automatic. You can't not make a 1 yard run. You can't not do it. You can't. And the Argos have done that repeatedly. So is the execution is how you know it didn't work. But why didn't the execution work is the question. Why does the coach feel that his short yardage group can't do their job? What's the reason that that's the case? It shouldn't be, like, because it reflects badly on the coach. If he can't trust his guys to go 2 yards or a yard, that's on him, because that's basically there is nothing that says team more than the short yardage game.
Right. It's not one person's fault.
Right.
It's as a group, the
Right.
blocking, the snap, the quarterback being able to run, or the running back. That, yeah, you are totally right. That is a team thing, and unfortunately, when it's a team issue, and it falls on the leader of the team, and the leader of the team is the coach. And it's not like
Absolutely.
they don't practice these plays. Don't get me wrong; they practice these plays. I've seen them practice these plays.
What are they
It,
practicing though? That's the question that I have. Listen, you're into music. The orchestra leader has to, it doesn't matter how talented the musicians are. If the orchestra leader doesn't do his job, none of them sound good,
no,
right? And that to me is my concern with the Argos right now. They have to figure out a way to do some of these things. That there are things that they don't do that they should do. That if they want to be a Grey Cup champ, they have to be able to do. So what we saw in this game, we saw something that is a good characteristic when it comes to being a champion, and that is being able to go into a locker room in a game that you're not playing well and then address the situation and meet the challenge of the second half. They did that. So this team's got heart. Bad news, they lost the game. Good news, they got heart. Good news for Winnipeg is, oh, ho hum, another victory.
yeah, it was almost like, why are we going to come? Like, you know what? We didn't play right, but guess what? We got the win, and we're 4-0.
Oh, that team it's such a good team, and it had, you know, their defensive line, when they're on, there's no one that's going to succeed against them. And one of the reasons why the Argos came back in the second half, I believe a few of the defenders got hurt. There were a lot of series where Winnipeg players were on the field,
Mhm.
needing to take their time coming off the field. So that could be part of it too. But I got to tell you, nothing says champion like Zach Collaros, and the way he makes winning look simple. They did it without a running game. You know,
They did right. Like that's the impressive part, is that there was a lot of pressure on Zach Collaros to like, there's a lot of pressure on Zach Collaros to make plays, because he really doesn't have anybody else to step up in those situations. Like, there's not a
absolutely.
running back, right? And so I just think what Winnipeg does so well is that, even when things aren't going right, there is no panic.
None
They're not
whatsoever.
they're not worried. I don't think Winnipeg fans were worried at all in that game. They might have not been thrilled with the fact that the Argos were coming back, but I don't think there was any panic from anyone, considering what they. That's it was funny, because somebody was mentioned that I think they only have two losses in meaningful games since Zach Collaros
Yeah.
took over as quarterback.
Was it 22-2? I think something like that.
Something like that. Their last, yeah, I think it was their last 24 games. They have won 22 of them. That just shows not only Zach Claros' talent and ability, but the influence, the calming influence. And you know what? I guarantee many people who said that all the Winnipeg needs is a quarterback and they're good. Well, they could thank the Toronto Argonauts for that quarterback.
Still, I still can't believe they made that trade. But you know, well, anyway, congratulations, Winnipeg. Well worth the
Oh,
bet.
I did see Zach after the game when I was leaving. I just said, glad to see, because he was with his family. I said, oh, it must be nice to be able to see your family because he was obviously they're all from just north of
Married a Toronto.
Toronto. And he said, yeah, it was very nice. He said it's always bittersweet coming home because he's coming for work and he's not able. He doesn't really get that much time, but he was very happy, very happy man after the game.
Absolutely, and he, and he should be, and you know what? I don't think it could happen to a nicer guy. It's a guy who, whether you're an Argo fan or Winnipeg fan or any other fan in the Canadian Football League, I don't think anybody can begrudge the career this guy's turned into based on what he came out of. I don't think there there's been a couple of hard luck quarterbacks in the Canadian Football League, and it's nice to see for him one of them to come out of it the way he did because this is a guy who had to change people's thinking. You know, everybody thought he was injury prone. Everybody thought, oh well, the concussions have ended his career. He's one concussion away from seeing the end of his career. Well, he's proved that that's not a problem, and good for him. And it's always nice. We cover football players, and I know this may sound corny, but we get a chance to meet them and talk to them. They're not just faces on a TV screen. They're not just guys on a scoreboard. These are people, and when you meet them, you can see, you know, you can see the situation they're in. You can see the pain. I remember the Grey Cup they won, the first Grey Cup they won, and speaking to Harris after that Grey Cup with what he went through. Football players are human, so it's nice to see that their humanity is rewarded, and I hope people notice that. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's easy to root for guys like Zach Claros and even Harris for that matter, because he went through a pretty tough time. One of my poster boys for good for him is Mazzoli. I love what he's doing in Ottawa. So these kinds of stories are the kinds that I like too. Seeing these players that have gone through the mill a little bit, and then not only survive but shine. And Zach Caleros is the poster boy for that.
No, definitely. I just think that you might hate what Winnipeg has done, but you also have admiration for the fact that Zach Claros worked hard for it, right? He went through a lot of adversity to get there. Nothing was handed to him. He had to work really hard to come back from a lot of things that I think a lot of people just would have given up on. And I wouldn't blame Zach Claros if he just said, you know what? It's one concussion too many for me. I got to think about my long term health. And he didn't do that. And it's a gamble you take as a football player because you don't get many opportunities really as a football player to go, and especially in football, like you
Yeah,
don't get many opportunities to go out and try to win. So I was we talk about, oh, why the Argos do that. I also kind of think there was a human element to it, and just like, you know what, we want Zach to get that opportunity because he's not going to get it here this year, so we're going to give him that opportunity, and it worked out.
they were dependent on guys that were cheaper that they thought might be able to get them there anyway. But he is one of the best quarterbacks of the past decade. So I don't think there's any doubt about that. You've got guys like Riley who retired. He had his time in what 214.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he retired. Bo Levi Mitchell later, 15, 16, 17. Great player, and now he's sort of coming back a little bit. Like I've said before, the Canadian Football League doesn't need more starters; they need more stars. And Zach Caleros is a star. let's go to the next game. The Edmonton Elks and the Hamilton Tiger Cats. The Elks win this game, David, with 14 points in the fourth quarter. Hamilton, I guess, looks like they fell apart again. I don't know. I don't know. Is it chemistry? Is it players? Is it working new guys into the lineup? Game breakers? What's the issue, in your opinion, with Hamilton, and why are they having difficulty winning?
We generally have seen Hamilton be a very slow starting team,
Yeah,
but not like
he
this.
says that.
They had some continuity from last year's team with Dane Evans is back. Tim White's there, Stephen Dunbar's there, Braylon Addison's there, Pappy White's there, and yet just something is not gelling there. And I don't know if it's the pressure that's getting to them. It's so tough to really try to figure out. In this game particularly, it was all them until that last play, right? It's almost like they had the kickoff go for a touchdown, right? Like they had a lot of things going their way, and then it just wait, what? We lost on a what? We lost on a fumble being returned for a touchdown? Oh boy. Like I it's so strange. And then not only that, I was just like well, on Edmonton's side, I'm just like, you're gonna put a rookie quarterback, his first start ever is going to be in Hamilton, which I'm sorry, I don't know if I've only been to Hamilton a few times. That is not an easy atmosphere to play in, and that's where he made his first start. Now, this is a little bit of a homecoming for him because he grew up just about a half hour from, not even half hour, 20 and a half
Oh,
hour
yeah,
drive.
Niagara Falls, and played for McMaster.
Play. This is a homegrown player. I mean, Chris Jones, boy, does he want to give us some. He wants to keep things interesting week in and week out.
You knew this is what he was going to do because he wasn't sold on Arbuckle. He made it very clear he wasn't sold on Arbuckle. So you know, and I think the other thing is Hamilton basically wrote the script for Ford by letting him have the ball at the end of the game in the fourth quarter. I mean, that was unbelievable. And that's with the wind. They gave Ford the ball and the fourth quarter and the wind. I mean, I guess some people's this believe that, well, Hamilton figured, let's bury the kid and then put him in a place where he won't be able to come back. We'll bury him early, and they were sort of kind of right, but they just didn't bury him deep enough.
No, they didn't. And look, how many? What lead? How much of a lead would you have to say you need in the CFL to be like, okay, this is in, this is in, this is done?
Depends who you
I think
are.
it's almost like what happened to the Argos against
Yeah,
BC. That's kind of my like. All right, this thing like after you get to like 24-3 or something, you're just like okay, like it's okay, like it's enough. Or like
but it doesn't matter. It doesn't play
no,
out
it
that
just
way.
I,
The CFL's always been a league that don't assume that the score, at the end of the half is going to be, predictable in the second half. No, but I
no.
really like the kid. He isn't and didn't. Uh, you know, he wasn't as flashy, and he made sure people understood who he was and who he was playing for. He was playing for Canadian kids playing in Canadian colleges and then coming to the Canadian Football League. That guy in BC did not play in Canadian colleges. He played in US college. So, there's a different path for the two quarterbacks that are Canadians that have made some noise, right? Two different paths. One made it as a Canadian through Canadian football, right through the Canadian colleges. So there's that path, and then we have the one that goes through college. And I don't care which way it works, David. As long as we have Canadian quarterbacks, I think they'll be the salvation of this league.
I thought that was probably the greatest story about this whole thing is that a lot of U Sports people are just like, oh, you've never heard of this guy before, or it's like, oh no, we expected this from Trey Ford because we've
Right.
seen it, we've watched this guy, we have he's been a he's this is where this guy was being asked to go to NFL rookie camps.
Yeah.
This isn't some U Sports player who, you know what, maybe he'll get into the CFL, maybe get a look, or when the CFL was bringing in Canadian quarterbacks to do those almost like a internship sort of thing, where it's like you have like Michael O'Connor when he was with, well, he was still in school, but he was in training camp with the Argos.
Yes.
This wasn't that situation. This was no. This Trey Ford is a very talented player. It's going to take him time because came from U Sports. He hasn't really had that professional experience, similar to um, Nathan Rourke. But in Nathan Rourke's situation, he had a whole year before he even got his time as a starting
He
quarterback.
was with
Trey
BC
Ford, he's being
working
thrown
on
right in. And a lot of people are just like, oh no. And I was one of those people. I'm just like, oh, don't do this to him, please. Like, let the guy have his opportunity to develop into that role. And he's just like, no, 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 it's okay. I got it. I got it.
I
Okay.
agree with Jones. I agree with Jones. They had nothing to lose. This is the team Edmonton is not supposed to win. So,
This is
it's
true.
not like Ford had the pressure to carry the burden of being, the behemoth that at the Edmonton Elks are. He was a guy that was going to prove that they were competitive. So the bar was, I don't want to say was low. That sounds terrible, but let's be honest. You said it at the beginning of this conversation about this game. Edmonton was coming into Hamilton, their house. This is a team that for the longest time you couldn't beat Hamilton in Hamilton. I know that's changed a little bit in recent history. And I do agree with Jones in the sense that he's basically saying, look, I'm going to give this kid a shot and I'm going to see what he can do. Now, the hardest part for me with Canadian quarterbacks is because of the coaching in the Canadian Football League, a lot of it is their backgrounds are US colleges.
Yeah.
Sometimes the relationship is more difficult to put together with a Canadian college kid being coached by a US college experienced coach or coaching staff, right? But Jones has been around long enough in the Canadian Football League that he understands, and I think I'm grateful as a CFL fan that he's giving a Canadian kid a real chance, and that's what he did. And yeah, you're right. It could have blew up in Jones's face, and Trey Ford could have been affected negatively because of it. But that didn't happen. So good for Jones, good for Ford, good for the Edmonton Elks. And Hamilton, on the other hand, has to figure something out because the quarterback position for them is a problem. You know what? Dwayne Evans threw two interceptions. He has like what, eight this year? I should check to see. I believe he has eight altogether this year,
He has, I have it right in front of me. He has, yeah, eight, five
right?
touchdowns, eight interceptions.
Right? That's not good. That's not good.
The one thing you cannot do as a CFL quarterback is turn over the ball. The best quarterbacks in the
Yeah, but everybody,
CFL,
every line shows interception, touchdown pass, interception, one touchdown pass, two interceptions, two touchdown passes, two interceptions. They're inextricably tied together in the Canadian Football League because that's how dominant the damn defenses are in the Canadian Football League.
yeah, and that's the other thing with Hamilton too. We're not seeing a dominant defense from them because they've lost a lot of those guys. Jagarrett Davis
When you
gone.
don't hear the name Simone Lawrence, the team's not playing well. He
Well,
has to
that
be a factor.
right, and they made sweeping changes. They're now here's the thing with Hamilton. They could have brought back every single guy from that team, but they were committed to trying. You can only try so many times before you decide, all right, you know what, this is just not working for us right now. We have to go a different path. And I think that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to go on a different path, but
Schultz is a good option.
I think when you're looking at it's, I don't know how long Dane Evans is signed for, but you don't get many opportunities to get that starting opportunity and then almost like think that you're untouchable. He shouldn't feel that way because this is a team that constantly has Grey Cup aspirations. They're
And they
not going
let
to be
go, they
told.
let go a pretty good quarterback for him.
They did. They made the decision that Jeremiah Mazzoli wasn't the guy for them, so they told him you're the guy. And right now they're not being. He's not rewarding them for that
Yeah,
faith that they've shown in him.
difficulty. Apparently, second party, I heard that he felt he shouldn't have played the last game because of his neck. Maybe he shouldn't have. He should have sat back. Well, that's what's going to have to happen. I can't see anything other than Schultz coming in at some point and relieving him and giving him a chance to maybe even the next game. Don't be surprised if Schultz starts. He started in the Canadian Football League for Montreal, so it's not like he's not a starter. He has started. So and let's be honest here, in the Canadian Football League, you have to produce. The quarterbacks today in the Canadian Football League, there are only a few that produce. So it feeds to the patience of coaches with, like for example with the East, how in trouble is Hamilton actually? They're only 2 points out of first.
Right? They win in the next two
you
games
know,
with the
so
way, yeah, with the way that all the other teams in the East are playing. The East is we came into this year. We said on this show
oh
the
boy.
East is going to be a lot more competitive, and the
Well,
and the West is just like, oh yeah, oh yeah, Frank, all right, Dave.
the thing is, we did also say that the West, like Calgary, was going to make a comeback. Talked
Yeah,
about them. BC, I guess BC's the surprise, right? You
BC,
expected Winnipeg to be Winnipeg. You expected Saskatchewan to be Saskatchewan, and essentially, Edmonton was rebuilding, right? They're rebuilding. So Hamilton right now is not in trouble, but they need to figure out the quarterback situation. And this has been what I'll call the albatross around the Eastern Division's neck has always been the fact that they can afford to lose. This is the history of the Eastern Division. So, oh well, we're losing about 4 games in a row. It doesn't matter. We can make that up in 2 weeks. That's the disease that infests the Eastern Division, and I don't like it. I don't like it. I want to see them be more accountable for the way they play, and that's again going back to the Argo game. Why I'm kind of glad that they were upset. I mean, you know, I don't hear anything. Hamilton fans, tell me, are you hearing anything out of the team that shows or sounds like they're displeased with the way they're playing in a way? Are you seeing anything? Are they getting upset on the field? I'm more concerned because they didn't, as opposed to the Argos getting upset. If I'm a Hamilton fan, I want to know the team's pissed about losing.
yeah. See, Dane Evans after the game, after they lost their last game, it's a long season, but we're not here to lose. That's not what I signed up for.
Well, that's definitely true. So 29-25 for Edmonton. That was a surprise. That truly was a surprise. Good for them. Um, we got the Lions playing the Red Blacks, and this was the best game of the weekend.
Yeah,
The other
they
game was really good, but it had a little bit of bad stuff in it, right? But this one here was, I love what Ottawa's doing, and Jeremiah Mazzoli, I'm impressed with him. And then there's Nathan York, who's in a situation where he ends up falling into some adversity, but getting right up, dusting himself off, and bringing this thing home.
yeah, the 50-yard touchdown run was a nice little touch too.
Yeah,
It's like I could throw the ball. But, oh yeah, by the way, I can run it for a 50-yard
He
touchdown.
made
It's
it look
just like,
easy, didn't he?
pardon?
He made it look easy.
Yes, he did. He. It
Because
is
that
so
wasn't much
hard.
edge for him to cut.
Those I don't think people realize it is very hard to break free for a touchdown because these defensive players are fast. They will catch you. So that's what was the most impressive. That shows how much speed, the athleticism he has. I mean, look, Keon Hatcher, if you had him in fantasy, good for you, 166 yards
Yeah.
receiving. He was dominant in this one, and I like what Ottawa's doing. They're still struggling to put up the production through the air, but they're getting there. They're a team that's building towards something, and there's a lot of new parts there. So I'm
Yeah,
not
when
too
William
worried about.
Powell's a little more healthy and back in the groove, he can be a difference maker. He's one of the best running backs in the Canadian Football League over the past few years.
Yes, no, for
And he'll
sure.
show that again. I have faith in him being able to do that. There's no doubt that he'll be a great running back again.
I don't have any doubts either.
Darvin Adams did pretty well. He and Mazzoli had a nice little tandem thing going on, 92 yards. Um, the guy that I guess, Ackland came to Ottawa with Mazzoli, and there was this sort of combination that they were bringing with them that hasn't shown itself really consistently yet.
Not yet.
I don't see it not happening. I think it could still happen, but defenses are going to know that Mazzoli's looking for Ackland. You know,
Yeah, yeah, they're trying to take away his best target, so he's finding Darvin Adams because his best target right now is being limited for sure.
absolutely. So I like what Ottawa's doing, and they've got, this is what happens when you have a quarterback. You have a chance, and yep, Nathan Rourke. This next game, now just to preview this week, he's up against Winnipeg. Now Winnipeg's on a real short week, 1 day of practice, so this is setting up good for a BC. BC has the advantage in this game.
They do.
You know, they that's the biggest thing is that Winnipeg's going to have one practice, so it's going to be interesting. But we have a team in Winnipeg, back-to-back Grey Cup champions, familiarity with each other. So the 1 day of practice isn't the same for a team that's building. Like let's say BC. If the roles were reversed, I think the disadvantage would be much stronger with BC because they're a team on the build, right? Uh,
Yes.
Winnipeg's a team that's built. So for me, I'm saying it's not that much of an excuse for Winnipeg to not play well against the BC.
No, there'll probably be a lot of film work and a lot of scout work. That's probably what they'll do with their time.
That's the game everybody's waiting to see. We all want to see what Rourke does against the
Yeah,
Winnipeg defense. The Twin Towers on the defensive line. Is he going to be able to throw over or around them?
exactly.
Is he going to be able to elude the defensive rush? Because when they send the full house at the quarterback, they're getting the quarterback. So it's just a question of does the quarterback get the ball out of his hands? And we're going to see how quickly we talked about Bethel Thompson, his improved play in the second half. Was he quick release? Rourke is going. We're going to see if he has a quick release, a consistent quick release in this game because that's what he's going to need to beat. I can't wait to see that game. Sorry, back to BC and Red Blacks.
Yeah, no, it's a good. It was by far the best game. Very competitive. It was good to see both. I thought Mazzoli could have played better, obviously, but he did enough to keep his team in the game, and they had a chance at the end. They tried very. It was a little too late for Ottawa, but they're building. They're going in the right direction at least.
They teetered Rourke. Their defense teetered them. Let's remember that. Let's give credit to where credit is due, and the Ottawa defense took a pretty efficient offense and made it look pretty ordinary most of the game.
No, they did.
And
I,
Ottawa
I
Ottawa fans have a lot to be happy about. I know they are. I know they will continue to be. And Ottawa is going to be a team in the East that You know, Ottawa, Montreal, Toronto, Hamilton. It's a pick 'em for first with what we've seen early in the season.
I do think so. I really do think so. Montreal, they're right now the top team, but one of the top teams. But I think they're too inconsistent as well for me as well.
Well, we'll see. The East offers us a lot of imperfection. I joked yesterday with some friends, and I said, "Well, this might be the 7-Eleven Grey Cup."
Oh, oh,
I said it. I said it out loud, David. If you're the West, you should be trembling because of how bad the East is playing. You know, Toronto and Ottawa won Grey Cups, and they weren't 500.
very true.
Oh wait, no, no, I'm sorry. I think Toronto was 500. I think they were 9-9.
Yeah, they were 9-9.
Hamilton was eight. Sorry, Ottawa was 8-10. I think when they won it
Mm-hmm.
against Calgary. So yeah, that's going to be very interesting. So BC, congratulations on the victory. They look really good. Their fans have a lot to be happy about, and a great game to look forward to. That Montreal team you just talked about up against Saskatchewan. Do you think Saskatchewan was angry and those 41 points were 41 reasons why they didn't want to lose the previous game and what they wanted to forget about it?
Yep. And especially at home in front of their fans, they're trying to make sure their fans come back. And I think they gave them many reasons to come back.
Yeah, they did it. They did an awesome job. 41-20. Fajardo just figures out how to win. Again, he might be considered a starting quarterback, but I think there's a bit of star in him. Just it seems sometimes people are a little hard on him, in diagnosing the way he plays.
Yeah, that's the microscope he's in. He's a top paid quarterback in the league, and he's got to take that. He's got to take those lumps with it.
Absolutely. Well, David, this was fun.
Thank you, Frank.
For David Morassutti, you're welcome. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching CFL Talk Aaron Live Mondays at 9 p.m. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For CFL Talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out spanglishworld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, live it. Thanks for watching, everybody.